Winter's last howl lingered over the ridges of the King's Road like a wounded wolf too stubborn to die, its breath a silver mist that curled around bare birch trunks and drifted across the rutted snowpack. Dawn pried open the sky with thin lacquer blue light, revealing the broken bones of a kingdom in uneasy truce. From her saddle at the edge of a frost-glittering meadow, the woman calling herself Arryn Stone watched the pale glow slide over distant foothills and felt the chill seep through duskin gloves that had once belonged to her brother. Arryn Stone was a fiction, stitched together by a dozen half-truths whispered in backwater inns. A merchant's daughter, a hedge knight's widow, a sellsword's bastard. Beneath the hood, Lyanna Stark's face lay hidden but unchanged by the years, its wild grace tempered only by the faint silver scar along her jawline, where Robert's mailed fist had grazed her as he tore her from Rhaegar's side. Gray eyes took in every broken fence post and empty watchtower, weighing where danger might prowl. 8 years had passed since the day Eddard Stark knelt before the Red Keep and lost both his honor and his head. 8 years since a raven found Lyanna in the rainforests of the Summer Isles, telling her that the brother who had hunted half the world to claim her had died branded a traitor. She had screamed until her voice broke, cracked her knuckles against a stone hearth until blood slicked her nails. Then she had vanished again, west across the rude sea lanes, and into the shattered wake of war, following each rumor of the Golden Queen who had signed her brother's death warrant. Now at last, Cersei Lannister roosted in the crumbling Red Keep like some venomous falcon fattened on carrion, her crown bought in wildfire and betrayal. Lyanna meant to slit the falcon's throat, but vengeance, she had learned, was an art that could not be rushed. It required patience, precision, and small kindnesses offered to fools along the road, so that whispers might open doors steel could not. In the preceding fortnight, she had ridden from Duskendale to Rosby under sleet, pausing only long enough to mend a stable boy's broken wrist and teach a small girl the twist-loop knot that tethered ponies even in a gale. Such acts draped her in humility. No one looked for daggers beneath a healer's cloak, yet daggers there were. 3 hidden in the folds at her spine, a 4th sewn into the lining of her left boot. Each had been forged by Mikken in Winterfell's smithy the summer before Robert's banners rose. Each bore a sigillus pommel dark with soot. Tools for piercing a lion's golden throat. She nudged her gelding forward, hooves crunching through crusted snow. With every mile south, memories stalked her like shades. She saw Benjen's quick grin as he pinned her braids above her ears, heard Brandon boasting that no knight in the 7 Kingdoms rode half so fearlessly. She remembered Ned's stillness, the way his eyes always searched the horizon for storms long before they broke. In those days, she had measured time by the thunder of lances and the freedom of a spirited horse beneath her. Love had been a simple promise shouted beneath a crown of blue winter roses. All that remained now was an iron determination cooling in her veins. Cersei Lannister would die gasping on her own blood. Mid-morning brought her to the village of Bellwater, where shuttered cottages hunched beneath hoarfrost and smoke limped from a single smithy chimney. Bells hung silent above the sept door. War had stolen the sexton years ago. A half-dozen farmers jostled around muddy barrels of salted pork, their faces etched with defeat. Bellwater had supplied grain to King's Landing until the crown defaulted on debts. Now their silos stood empty, their children hungry. Lyanna dismounted before the smithy, where a boy of perhaps 13 pumped a bellows too large for his narrow shoulders. His woolen mittens were frayed, and each haul on the lever made him wince. "Where's your master?" Lyanna asked, voice low enough to reassure. The boy glanced up, soot smudging his cheek like war paint. "Dead last winter, m'lady. Lungs, they said. I keep the fire, mend what I can." Then she stepped inside, warmth licking her boots. "Show me your hands." He hesitated, then held them out. Raw cracks split the skin, pus glazing the deeper ones. She unpacked a tiny tin of bear fat and white willow sap, worked it gently into his palms. "Wrap them at night. Boil rags clean. Charge no coin for this." Her smile flashed like a secret. The gods pay debts. Outside, the farmers had fallen quiet. Their eyes weighed her ease with blade and salve alike. One man, heavy in gut and grief, approached. "We've naught to trade, sir." "I ask no trade." She surveyed the village's sagging barns, the frost-nipped fields. "But if a traveler needed news of the capital, who might oblige?" The farmer scratched at stubble. "Master Cadwyn keeps the post house east o' the ridge. Sees every courier carries a tale." He pointed with a cracked nail. "Follow the timberline till the river narrows. You'll smell his pipe leaf before you spy the roof." Lyanna offered a nod, then pressed 2 silver stags into the man's hand. "For seed come spring." His eyes shone, as though the coins were sunlight. "7 bless you." She mounted and turned south once more, feeling Bellwater's gratitude warm her back like a second cloak. Such warmth served her purpose. Rumor traveled swiftly where hope rekindled. When the time came for northern banners to rise again, these villagers would remember the woman with midnight hair who carried Winterfell's compassion in her pockets. By dusk, she reached the ridge. There, overlooking the frozen ribbon of the White Rush, stood Cadwyn's post house. Timbers sagging beneath years of neglect, yet candlelight glimmered through warped shutters. Smoke coiled from a stone chimney, carrying the promised smell of sweet leaf. She tethered her horse beneath a skeletal oak and slipped inside. The taproom was tiny, papered in curling broadsheets and parchment scraps touting bounties, long claimed or abandoned. Only 2 patrons occupied it, a sellsword in rust-flaked mail snoring against his tankard, and a courier warming spidery hands by the hearth. Behind the counter, Master Cadwyn, narrow as a quill, eyebrows thick as hogbush, looked up from a ledger. "Beds are 3 copper," he rasped. "Stew comes dearer." Lyanna drew back her hood just enough for silver-steam firelight to catch the line of her jaw. "I seek parchment, wax, and the latest court decrees." Cadwyn's gaze sharpened. "Court decrees? That'll cost princely." She laid a silver stag upon the counter, the coin ringing like a small bell. "My purse is equal to my curiosity." The innkeeper unhooked a vellum scroll from the rafters and unfurled it. "Proclamation of Her Grace, Cersei of House Lannister, first of her name," he read, voice embalmed with boredom. "All subjects north of the Trident shall remit surplus grain to King's Landing or forfeit holdings." Lyanna's teeth pressed against her lower lip. Date. Fortnight passed. So the Queen bled the Riverland still, feeding her coffers with winter stores, while starving the frontier. Ned's warnings had always fallen on deaf ears at court, and nothing in the rosy years since his death had changed that rot. Anything else? Cadwyn produced a smaller notice. Execution named 3 smugglers from Dragonstone, on charges of fomenting treason. Signed by Sir Meryn Trant. Lyanna finished. She knew the man. A Kingsguard knight who once stripped a kitchen girl naked for dropping a jug. A lioness's favorite cur. She offered another coin. Ink and quill. At a side table, she began a letter in the ridged northern script of Maester Luwin. Forging the hand by memory. My Lady Tully. The night grows long, and the snow deepens. The lone wolf yet lives. Guard your rivers, for the lion grows ravenous in famine. She signed it only with a scrawled direwolf, then sealed the parchment. Blackfish Bryndon, if rumor proved true, still held River Run's secret tunnels. He would know what to make of it. She slid the sealed letter toward the dozing courier. "Deliver this to River Run, and you'll find a second stag awaiting." The young man blinked awake, startled by the coin's glow. "Consider it flown, lady." In the corner the sellsword stirred, eyes glinting under shaggy hair. "Strange charity," he muttered. Lyanna studied him. The man was big yet starved, white streaks in his beard. A hardened edge lingered beneath the slump of his shoulders, like a blade left in the rain too long. "A storm approaches," she said. "Wise folk build alliances before thunder." The sellsword's lips twisted. Not quite a smile. Not quite a snarl. "You speak stark, and yet you ride alone." She did not flinch. "I ride forward." He lifted his tankard in mock salute. "Then pass my respects to the stranger when you meet on that road." She left him to his ale. The back stairs groaned as she ascended. In the attic room, moonlight spilled through a cracked skylight, onto a straw pallet. She barred the door, crouched to loosen her boots, and withdrew the dagger, sewn within. Its edge caught the moonlight like a silent scream. Carefully, she set it beside the bed, then unbuckled the leather satchel slung at her hip. Within lay 2 vials, one of pale, sediment-clouded milk, the other of ink-black oil. Milk of the poppy for wounded peasants, oil of nightshade for Lannister throats. She checked the stopper's seal, then wrapped them again. Sleep came fitfully, carrying fragments of fevered dreams. She stood once more in the Tower of Joy, its white stones splashed with dawn. Ned's voice, hoarse with grief, whispered her name. In her arms the newborn wailed. No, not a babe, but a blade. Rhaegar's silver sword transforming, melting into Ned's bloody greatsword ice. The steel slipped, crimson flooding her dress. She woke gasping, fingers clutched around empty air. Pre-dawn frost filmed the window. She rose, washed her face in the icy basin, and plaited her black hair tight against the wind. Downstairs the common room slumbered, save for the crackling hearth. Cadwyn dozed behind his desk. Lyanna left 3 copper pennies beside his ledger, payment for a bed she had scarcely used, and stepped into the violet hush outside. She rode south at first light, following the white rush until it mingled with the black water. The ground thawed as leagues passed. Snow gave way to brittle mud, and crooked willows lined the riverbank like penitents at prayer. 3 days' travel brought the smear of King's Landing across the horizon, brick red against a pewter sky, banners limp in still air. Beyond the walls floated the stench of tanneries and the river's rotting froth. The capital had not changed since the day she fled. Its gates yawned like a gaping wound, swallowing emigrants and soldiers alike. Lyanna dismounted in the shadow of an abandoned olive grove and changed her raiment for coarse homespun, donning a patched cloak the color of dust. The leathers and daggers she concealed beneath in clever slits, blades lying flush against her ribs. She smeared ashes along her cheeks to dull the too northern pallor of her skin. Only when satisfied that no glimpse betrayed her birth did she lead her horse to a rag-picker's stall outside the city and barter the beast away for a handful of coppers and a rotting canvas sack stuffed with rags, perfect cover for a healer seeking the poorer districts. Inside the mud gate the press of bodies closed around her. Beggars with frost-burned feet, merchants hauling winter onions, sparrows murmuring prayers to any god who might feed them. Gold cloaks in tarnished mail leaned against barricades, spears idly tapping cobblestones. It rankled to see Robert's stag still embossed upon their breastplates. A lion reigned, yet the crown persisted in symbols better left buried. Lyanna let the crowd's current bear her north through Fleabottom's labyrinth, past cook fires that burned onion skins and horse dung, past taverns where the ale smelled of vinegar and fear. Here she might vanish for weeks, learning the city's rhythms, plucking alliances from despair like wildflowers from a battlefield. But time shortened its leash. Cersei's trees grew crueler. Ned's bones lay in crypts still unavenged. She found lodging in a dilapidated tenement overlooking the Blackwater. The widow who kept the rooms eyed her bundle skeptically until Lyanna produced a tin of salve for the woman's arthritic fingers. "Stay as long as you wish," came the hoarse gratitude. Coin could not have bought a warmer welcome. That night, she sat by a cracked window, watching torchlight flicker along the palace walls high above. A tide of memory surged. The clangor of tourney trumpets, Rhaegar's smile as he crowned her queen of love and beauty with winter roses, Brandon's rage, Robert's betrayal, the blood on the trident. She opened a small notebook bound in direwolf skin and began to list names under the ink's hush. Sir Boros Blount, Sarah Marin Trant, Qyburn, Pycelle, and at the top, written with deliberate care, Cersei of House Lannister. Beside each, she marked a date, a place, a vulnerability, days folded into one another. Lyanna wandered the alleys of Cobbler's Square, binding scrapes, lancing boils, trading drafts of time tea for rumors. In the basement of the shattered anvil, she treated a cut purse's infected leg. In gratitude, he described every secret postern along the Red Keep's river face, where the stonework crumbled and guards grew lazy at midnight. A laundress from the queen's chambers whispered that Cersei drank sweet arbor wine each evening before the court dispersed. A novice septa outlined the procession route for the upcoming Feast of the Maiden. The queen would ride in an open palanquin, rings heavy upon slender fingers. Information wove into a map inside Lyanna's mind, each thread tightening around the lioness' throat. Yet it was the last whisper that chilled her blood. A rumor that Cersei kept a black-haired boy hidden among her pages. A child who spoke in the lilting cadence of the north, whose gray eyes mirrored winter skies. Lyanna's quill hovered above her notebook as the implications unfurled. Jon. Could Ned's bastard have been dragged south and caged in silk? Or was it some other orphan, forced to serve as a living trophy? Either possibility twisted her gut. Revenge could wait. Rescue could not. Under moonless darkness she scaled an ivy-choked wall near the kitchens, timing her ascent between the patrols the cutpurse had described. Fingers numb, she slid through a narrow window into a corridor smelling of lemon oil and meat smoke. Voices echoed far off. Stewards arguing over larders, guards laughing about dice. She moved like a wraith, hugging velvet shadows, counting doorways. Third on the left beyond the rookery stairs lay the page's dormitory. She eased the latch, slipped inside. 6 cots lined the stone walls, their occupants breathing in childish rhythms. Moonlight spilled across faces flushed with fattening suppers. None bore the stark look. She searched each gently, smoothing hair from brows, checking for the telltale curl of dark locks, and the blood of winter in their veins. Nothing. A sigh escaped her lips, part relief, part disappointment. Footsteps clacked outside. She melted behind a wardrobe as the door opened. A boy of perhaps 12 stepped in, clutching a stack of fresh inked ledgers. His hair shimmered black. His eyes were pale as smoke. Lyanna's heart slammed against her ribs. She slid forward, one hand over his mouth, the other around his chest, lifting him off the floor. "Still," she whispered. "Make no sound and you live." The boy's terror surged, but he stilled at the northern cadence of her voice. She eased her hand from his lips. "Name." She breathed. "Tom of Gulltown," he stammered. "No northern burr." She studied him, recognition fading. Yet he resembled gods. He could have been Ned's son save for the softness around the eyes. Lyanna's muscles relaxed, then tensed anew as the boy's gaze dropped to the dagger at her belt. "You'll slit my throat. I free you," she said. "Do you wish to leave these walls?" His chin lifted, fragile defiance. "My mother's debts keep me here. If I run, they'll hang her. Debts can be paid." She reached into her satchel, pulled free a pouch that clinked. "Seek the healer's chapel outside Visinia's hill. Ask for Sister Mora. Tell her Aaron's stone repays a kindness. Now." The boy's fingers trembled as he accepted the coin. "Why?" Her throat tightened. "Because winter remembers." She led him to the window, showed him where the ivy twisted thick enough to climb. "Go now." When he hesitated, she touched his cheek gently, as she might have touched Joan's had life spared her that joy. Then vanished back into the corridor. Alone again, she navigated deeper. In the queen's solar torchlight flickered beneath the door. Lyanna pressed ear to wood. Only the hiss of quills, the clink of a decanter. Cersei was within, perhaps alone. Destiny coiled in her belly like a burning serpent. She eased her dagger from its sheath, tested the edge with a thumb. One push through the door, one swift strike, and the game ended here. Ned's shade would rest. Yet voices floated from the stairwell. Armored boots, Lannister guards in casual patrol. Too many, too close. She sheathed the blade, withdrawing into shadow just as 2 red-cloaked men passed, yawning. They paused outside the solar. One knocked lightly. "Your Grace, your escort awaits." A woman's tone, languid with wine, drifted back. "Tell them to wait a moment longer." Lyanna's pulse hammered. She was so near she could smell the perfume, essence of Myrish lilac, and taste the sour heat of resentment woven into the air. She could slip through behind the guards, but rashness had buried too many Starks. Patience, precision, small kindnesses opening doors. She retreated silently down a servant's stair, heart smoldering yet resolute. There would be another night, and she would not waste the chance to learn which debts bound children to these gilded cages. At dawn she stood again at her attic window, watching gulls wheel above the Red Keep's towers. Vengeance was close enough to taste, but now the map inside her shifted. To kill the queen, she must first unravel the web that fed her reign. Cut each silken thread binding child, guard, and court alike. Only then would Cersei Lannister stand alone, defenseless against a northern storm that had learned to bide its time. Lyanna dipped quill to ink and began a new list. Debts to pay, chains to break, allies to win. Across the margin she wrote one more name, Tom of Gulltown. And beside it, like a promise, the word free. Somewhere in the city, bells tolled the hour. Lyanna Stark straightened her spine, feeling the weight of every winter still to come. She closed the notebook, strapped her daggers in place, and stepped into the morning light. The hunt had truly begun, and the lioness, though still blissfully unaware, already bled from unseen wounds. The snowmelt scent of the Blackwater clung to the dawn, an acrid tang that drifted up the cobbled alleys and lodged in the throat like regret. From the garret window, Lyanna watched pale vapor curl above the river's sluggish eddies, its sheen broken by garbage scows and the low silhouettes of ferry barges rowing toward the long pier at Oakenfist Landing. Ragpatch sails snapped and sagged in the breeze, each bearing sigils half-painted or flaking: a red crab, a three-masted cog, a stag's broken antler. She studied them as a gambler studies dice before the cast. Ships bred rumor, and rumor bred leverage. When the city bells clanged tierce, she pulled on her healer's cloak and slipped into the streets. Flea bottoms seethed with hungry industry. Washerwomen beating linen to the rhythm of gossip. Coopers hammering barrel hoops, dung collectors trundling carts that stank of rot. She greeted them all with the same soft courtesy, trading liniment for directions, willowbark drafts for a name muttered too low to carry. Each exchange threaded another fine stitch in the tapestry she wove around the queen's throat. At Tanner's, Row an urchin guided her to a cellar where smugglers hawked contraband parchment stripped from sept archives, maps inked before Robert's Rebellion, border tallies, forgotten warrants. Lyanna bought 2 sheets with coin earned patching the tannery foreman's whip-scarred hand. One map traced subterranean culverts, bored beneath the Red Keep during Maegor's reign, long assumed collapsed. The other listed maintenance orders for the bells of the Great Septi, including a note: Southwestern bell frame compromised. Access reinforcements required before autumn storm season. Bells above an unsuspecting crowd. An assassin's perch if one dared the precarious climb. She folded both beneath her cloak and drifted on. By midday she reached Visenya's Hill, where Sister Mora's humble chapel hunched between 2 gambling dens. Its only adornment was a cracked window pane depicting a direwolf raising a lantern. The glass had dulled to smoky green, but winter's sigil remained unmistakable. Inside, incense masked the smell of herb poultices steeping in kettles. Sister Mora, once a midwife on Bear Island, now a silent septa given to pragmatic oaths, recognized Lyanna with a nod. No questions, never any questions. Mora trafficked in deeds, not confessions. She gestured the northern woman toward the rear cloister, where Tom of Gulltown sat upon a pallet, turning the silver stag in his fingers as though unsure whether it were coin or dream. Lyanna crouched beside him. "You have eaten." "Porridge," he mumbled, eyes darting. "And apples." "Sister Mora says the gods answer bold prayers." "They do." She checked the color in his cheeks. "Healthier already. You will remain here until a ship sails north under the Mormont banner. Then you go to Oldcastle, find Lady Maeg, give her this." From her satchel, she drew a strip of dark wool embroidered with a pattern of leaping salmon. "It unravels to a full favor. Tell her the lone wolf yet searches the pack." Tom's brows knit. "I'm no courier. Not yet." But the North remembers those who honor its tokens. Return this favor safely, and doors will open to you from White Harbor to Last Heart. She left him practicing the tale in a whisper, pride blooming in his voice each repetition. In the nave, Sister Mora stirred a cauldron of pennywort and barley. The city thickens with rumor. She said, lips barely shaping the words. The Queen's small council meets nightly behind shuttered windows. Reports of sellswords massing at the Gold Road gates. Golden Company? Lyanna asked. Too few elephants for that joke. Mora snorted. No, these were a black hand over a green field. Lyanna sifted memory. Sell hearts. Kuhor discipline. Bravosi blades, not cheap, nor subtle. Someone expects riot. Lyanna rested her palm on the rim of the cauldron, letting heat soak her fingers. Riot will not serve my design. Quiet fear, isolated strikes. That is the killing frost. She reached for a leather bundle tied with wolf gray cord. I need your sisterhood's network tonight. Letters must run to River Run, to Glover at Deepwood Mott, to House Reed in its marsh. On the morrow, I may need a corpse hidden. Bam? Mora's eyes glinted. Payment. Justice. Lyanna untied the bundle. Inside lay a strip of golden lion skin sewn with silver thread, the lining of Cersei's private rider's cloak, stolen weeks ago from a washing trolley. Let the small folk see what riches I burn for salve and soup. They will know which queen bleeds them. That afternoon she prowled the fish markets beside the river. Amid sloshing tubs and gull shrieks, she found Thalia Flowers, bastard daughter of a forgotten Florent knight, now operating a clandestine courier ring for bartered secrets. Thalia wove nets of information faster than any spider, yet sold only fragments at a time, an instinct Lyanna admired. Today, the bastard's price was simple. Splint the broken wing of her hawk, Greywing, and she would name the steward responsible for the queen's wine. Lyanna's deft fingers set the bone, wrapped the limb, whispered a northern lullaby to calm the bird. Thalia kept her bargain. Tanda Stokeworth's youngest lollies, gentle as milk water, easily startled. Tastes the first cup each night. A detail, but a precious one. Milkwater prey stumbled often. Nightfall draped the city in cinders and pitch. From the Killgate rampart, Lyanna watched the torches coil up Aegon's high hill, flicker along the crenellations of Maegor's holdfast. Cold wind snatched strands of her hair, smacking them against her lips with the tang of iron. The guard changed above, red cloaks rustling. She mapped their posts by the measured beat of boot soles on stone. The pause at each turning, the hush of conversation as they crossed. 4 heartbeats between each lap. She withdrew to the widow's waltz, a tumble-down alehouse crouched half beneath the city wall, like a humpback throne. The common room smelled of sour ale and onion broth gone to mold. Perfect anonymity. In a corner, a man in boiled leather peeled hazelnuts with a dirk, his face lost beneath a hood heavy with rainwater. She sat across from him uninvited. Still breathing, Snowmane? She murmured. The hood lifted enough to reveal a nose broken thrice and eyes yellowed by cheap drink. Wolf. Snowmane, once Sir Jory Castle's most reckless sparring partner, had survived the betrayal at King's Landing by diving from a battlement into a hay cart. Cowardice, some said. Lyanna called it resourcefulness. She slid a vial across the table. Nightshade, he guessed. Just enough to make a lioness crave sleep. She set a parchment beside it bearing a simple plan. Supply routes from the royal larder to Cersei's solar, shift times of cellar stewards, an arrow marking where the wine taster stood. I need Lolly Stokeworth drinking from this vial's twin tomorrow eve. Nothing more. Spread the rumor of pox. Have the girl confined. Another will be chosen to taste. Snowmane's grin was a chipped thing. And that taster you fancy is? Myself. He popped a hazelnut between crooked teeth. Crunch echoed by laughter. Bold. But there's the other matter you asked. Word from the Riverlands. He produced a charcoal rubbing of a seal. A trout leaping beside a direwolf. Blackfish replies. River-run stands ready. He writes, "Loose the dam, and we drown the lion's cubs." Lyanna's chest tightened. Hope, dangerous and sweet. She pocketed the rubbing. Tell him the dam bursts on the maiden's feast. Snowmane raised an imaginary cup. I'll carry the wave, mistress. Wind shook the alehouse shutters. Somewhere beyond, thunder rolled, or perhaps only a wagon clattered over uneven stones. Noise all the same, and noise masked daggers. Lyanna left him to his hazelnuts. She headed deeper into the warrens, a district where the houses leaned like drunks, upper floors clasping hands across alley tops. In one such attic she met Maester Orell, dismissed from the citadel for pursuing heretical potions drawn from Corthine texts. He owed her 3 favors for smuggling him out of Lannisport. Together they brewed a tincture of widow's wail and summerbane. Harmless if steeped seconds only, lethal if left to cool. She parted with half. Enough for the queen's cup. The rest Orell kept, muttering that guilt tasted of cinnamon. The following dawn broke pink across a sky scraped clean by night rain. Carts bearing tapestries and wine casks queued outside the Dragon Gate, each destined for the great hall to decorate the feast of the maiden 2 nights hence. Lyanna joined the procession disguised as a washerwoman. Shoulders bowed under the weight of linens. The guards barely glanced at her forged badge. A crowned falcon overcrossed keys. The sigil of House Aaron's washing service, repurposed by skillful ink. She passed beneath the iron-studded portcullis and into the belly of the beast. Inside, the keep buzzed like a nest of hornets roused too early from winter torpor. Servants scrubbed flagstones, tailors hemmed new crimson drapes, scullions hauled sacks of turnips bigger than infants. Lyanna melted among them, a mote in the swarm. She noted every alcove, every dead corner where a man might vanish in shadow. Each bend of corridor where tapestry replaced stone, good for hiding a blade's thrust. In the queen's kitchens, heat slapped her cheeks, thick with the perfume of spiced pears stewing in honey. The chief steward, a towering woman named Gullis, barked orders with a voice hoarse from lifelong rage. Lyanna found the wine pantry tucked behind a row of spice racks. There, small-clothes gentle Lolly stood counting bottles, quills scratching timidly. Snowmane's rumor had worked. Lolly's forehead glistened, her breaths halting. "Dizzy," she murmured when Lyanna steadied her elbow. They whispered of fevers. Gullis flung curses. Within the hour, a pair of gray cloaks escorted the young lady to a healer's chamber. Lyanna watched impassively as the slot emptied for a new taster. Aaron Stone. She told Gullis when volunteers were demanded. The steward glared. "You'll drink fire wine? I've drunk worse crossing Skagos." She seized a cup and tipped back a mouthful deep enough to make her eyes water. Sound palate, nose clear. I declare it untainted. The display won nods and mutters of respect. Position secured. That night she wrote her final preparations in cipher on linen, then burned them in the hearth. Snow crackled in the flame like distant applause. Tomorrow, she would place herself within striking distance of the queen. Yet impulse remained the enemy. Too many pieces still stood between dagger and lioness. She needed them misaligned, and she had one last gambit. Sow panic among the Lannister guard. Hours before dawn she crept again to the river culvert noted on the ancient map. Do. The tunnel mouth lay half submerged by sludge. Iron bars, once stout, now rusted through at 2 joints. She snapped them quietly with a pry bar, slipped inside, murk lapping her boots. Rats scattered. The blackness smelled of wet stone and old secrets. She carried a lantern shuttered to a thin slit and walked until she reached a brickwork junction sealed by a crumbling plug of mortar. There she drew a slim cask of lamp oil from her pack, wedged it into a cavity, and rigged a fuse braided of nettlecord. A flint wheel hung ready on the wall beside the fuse head. Not tonight, not even tomorrow. But when the feast began and the bells rang, a single spark would send greasy smoke billowing up unused fireplaces beside Maegor's audience chamber. Guards would scramble to smother phantom fire. Corridors would empty, posts would thin. Chaos on cue, orchestrated like a refrain. She retraced her steps, scrawling chalk marks to guide her return. A pale tendril of dawn touched the river mouth as she emerged. It turned her wet cloak to freezing parchment, but she did not shiver. The chill kept her sharp. Across the city, the smiths of the guild quarter rang anvils in salute of the new day. Their cadence followed her up the hill toward a nondescript door, set between a cobbler and a lamplight, the domicile of Qyburn, dismissed maester, alchemist, and rumored whisperer of darker arts. Qyburn feared no one but coveted every secret. Lyanna carried a bait he could not resist. She rapped thrice, a pattern meaning payment. The gaunt man opened, gray beard, neat as a new-penned script. I expected payment in 3 days. I accelerate the schedule. She produced a parchment showing the guard rosters for the feast, ink still fresh, from the hand's own files. Qyburn's eyes shone. In exchange? A boon. Keep the mountain leash tomorrow night. Her voice betrayed nothing, though her pulse spiked at the monster's name. Gregor Clegane walked again, rumor said, stitched and mute beneath new armor. If the beast steps near the queen's table, you will despise the cost. Qyburn tapped thin lips. A costly request. Not if the lioness lives past dawn. The mountain's appetite is sated for now. She met his gaze, ice to ice. Let us share the kill cleanly. He bowed, a scrape of dry leaves. As you wish. By sunset banners unfurled from every tower of the Red Keep to announce the feast of the maiden. White silk flapping with 7-pointed stars arrayed in gold. But the silk's edges frayed already, torn by weeks of wind. Lyanna smiled to see it. Omen of decay. She slept, but lightly, and dreamt of Winterfell's godswood in summer. The heart tree wept red sap that tasted of wine, and Ned's shade leaned against the trunk, mending ice with calm strokes of a whetstone. He looked up, lips parted, as if to speak. A crow lit on his shoulder and cawed. Scattering dream to pieces. Lyanna woke before dawn, tear tracks cold on her cheeks. She could not recall Ned's words. The feast day scraped by like a whetstone across brittle nerves. Kitchens roared, musicians tuned lutes. Perfumers lit braziers of orange blossom to mask the reek of the city seeping through arrow slits. Lyanna donned a clean tabard bearing the royal stag lion's sigil over her healer's graze, and took her place beside the wine casks. She sipped each amphora the cellarers uncorked, proclaiming them pure. Beneath her tongue, a sliver of pine resin neutralized the alcohol. Vigilance must not falter. Late afternoon. Sunlight slanted through high windows, gilding dust motes. Footmen laid trestle tables heavy with quail, trout, stuffed dates, blood oranges from Dorne. Cersei entered last, circlet of beaten gold upon bright hair, dressed the color of a fresh wound. The court bent knee. Lyanna bowed low, rage a silent scream behind her ribs. She smelled the queen's perfume, lilac and myrrh, undercut by something sharper. Fear disguised as arrogance? Wine service began. Lyanna poured the first cup from a deep green bottle flecked with amber sparks. She raised it to her lips. Swallowed. The hall watched. She set the goblet before Lolly's replacement, a stooped hedge knight named Sir Valon, who in turn presented it to the queen. Cersei drank, eyes never leaving the gathering. Lyanna's fists unclenched. The poison was not yet in play. Her vial remained tucked in her boot. Timing mattered. Too early and healers might purge it. Too late, and guards might suspect outside craft. She must wait for the third cup, the cup of complacency. Minstrels struck chord, and the feast bloomed into chatter. Lyanna drifted between tables, topping cups, collecting morsels of conversation. Lords complained of missing grain wagons upriver. Ladies gossiped that Jaime Lannister had not left his chambers in days, and that the Kingslayer's laugh now sounded like broken glass. A Tyrell cousin whispered that the Iron Bank had frozen crown credit lines. Each anxiety was a thread. Combined, they could strangle. Third course. Suckling pig glazed with apple pith. Lyanna returned to the queen's dais with a bottle of Arbor Red in one hand, and concealed in the other, a slim wax plug drawn from the nightshade tincture. As she tipped the wine into a decanter, She depressed the plug's wax between thumb and forefinger. Black liquid bled into the crimson flow, like ink dispersing in water. 3 slow breaths, steady hands. She offered the decanter to Sir Valon. He sniffed, nodded, poured. Cersei lifted her goblet, swirling the wine to catch candlelight. Time slowed. Heartbeat hammer on anvil. The queen sipped. 1 mouthful. 2. Lyanna counted to 10. Cersei's gaze slid past her, unfocused for a heartbeat, then sharpened again. A start, but not yet a stumble. Good. The tincture's first stage numbed the tongue, loosened limbs, masked by drink's own fog. Now, Lyanna excused herself, wove through kitchen passages, down to the culvert stair. There, by flickering torch, she primed the flint wheel. 1 scratch sent sparks into the nettle cord. It hissed, ember racing into the dark. She turned and ran, boots splashing up water, cloak snapping behind. Up the steps, through a tapestry slit, into a side corridor near the queen's solar, her chosen vantage. A dull hump vibrated stones beneath her feet. Moments later, black smoke belched from grates along the audience wing. Shouts erupted, fire in the lower hearths. Steel clattered. Guards thundered past toward the fumes. Exactly as planned. Posts at the feasting hall would thin while commanders sorted chaos. Lyanna slid back into the hall just as confusion rippled the edges. Maesters hurrying after guards. Stewards wringing hands. Cersei sat rigid, lips darkening, a faint sheen on her brow. She raised trembling fingers to her throat. Heat. Stifling. She muttered. Sir Kellen, newest Kingsguard, leaned to her. Your Grace, the hall is safe. Shall I escort? She waved him off, pride warring with nausea. Bring fresh air. He moved away. Lyanna approached with a flagon of watered wine, mask of concern flawless. My queen, a milder vintage might settle your stomach. Cersei glared but reached, fingers slipping on the cup. Liquid sloshed. A drop spattered Lyanna's sleeve. She feigned worry. Perhaps your Grace would prefer to retire. The lioness tried to rise. Knees buckled. Gasps fluttered. Sir Valon rushed forward, catching her elbow. Whiny. Foul, she rasped. Panic thundered through the gathering. Lyanna seized the moment, shouting, Fetch the Grand Maester. While commotion surged, she knelt, ostensibly supporting the queen, actually pressing 2 fingers to Cersei's wrist, pulse fast, erratic. The nightshade would tighten her throat within minutes, suffocating quietly. Guards closed in. Lyanna stepped back, making room, heart pounding like hooves on iced earth. She had done it. Ned, Brandon, Benjen. Their whispers swirled in her blood. But as she turned, ready to vanish amid the tumult, a voice slashed the din. Aaron Stone. She froze. Jaime Lannister stood at the alcove entrance, hair unkempt, golden armor untidy as if donned mid-stagger. His green eyes fixed on her with strange clarity. I know that name, he said quietly. Around him space cleared, as though the smell of dragonfire issued from his cloak. Lyanna's mind raced. She dipped a curtsy. Sir. Jaime's gaze flicked to his sister, collapsed upon the high seat, then back. The stone woman who tends wounds across Flea Bottom. They say she rides like a storm of swords. A brittle smile curved his mouth. I once knew a girl who rode so. She crowned a prince with blue roses. Then. Silence pin-dropped across flagstones. Lyanna's breath lodged within her lungs. Memory tangled with bile. The tourney at Harrenhal. The choirs. Petals drifting upon lake water. Jaime took a step closer. Show me your eyes, he said. She lifted her chin. Gray steel met green gold. Recognition cracked something behind his gaze. He inhaled sharply, staggered as if stabbed. But words died upon his lips. Behind him other guards shouted, calling him to his queen. Jaime swallowed, torn between blood and duty. He pivoted, strode to Cersei's side. Maester. Now. Betty. As hands clustered round the gasping queen, Lyanna slipped away. pulse roaring. She fled down service stairs, mind aflame. Jaime Lannister had seen her, the Kingslayer, bound to his sister by love foul as plague. Would he shout her name to every red cloak? Or would he bury the truth? No matter. Her mask had cracked. The hunt would turn. She burst into a courtyard where snow drifted like soft ash. Hoofbeats clattered. She mounted a tethered palfrey, no matter whose, and spurred for the postern gate above the mudflats. A startled guard reached for a horn. She hurled a dagger. Hilt first. Striking his temple, he fell stunned. She galloped through the narrowing gap as the portcullis rattled, ducking low, cloak snapping like raven wings. Behind her, bells pealed wild. No longer the stage prop of rebellion, but the true alarm. Torches flared upon ramparts. Arrows streaked ham-fisted into the night, far behind her. The palfrey plunged down the switchback toward the river road. Hooves skidded on frost. Sparks flew. Lyanna leaned in, murmuring winter words into the horse's ear, until speed steadied. At the river ford, she angled north into a stand of frost-silvered birch. Cold moonlight striped the ground. Breath plumed from horse and rider alike. She did not slow until the red keep was a bruise of torch glow on the southern horizon. When she finally reined up beside a black pool ringed in reeds, her limbs began to shake. Not with chill, but with the enormity of what hovered between triumph and catastrophe. Had the queen died? Was Jaime already calling for hounds? She would learn soon enough. The north had eyes. Lyanna slid from the saddle, knelt, scooped a palmful of water, and splashed her face. The reflection staring back was gaunt, strands of hair plastered, gray eyes rimmed red. She pressed her forehead to the horse's neck, inhaling the honest musk of sweat and hay. "Almost," she whispered. Then she took the last dagger from her boot, a twin to the one left in the guard's skull, and cut free a lock of her own dark hair. It floated upon the pool before sinking. Tonight the lioness tastes winter. She told the silent trees, if she survives, the next breath she draws will freeze her from within. Branches stirred like a slow applause, leaves rustling secrets through the dark. Far off, a wolf howled, no southern cur but trueborn, voice rising like a banner to the stars. Lyanna's heartbeat answered in kind. She mounted again, turning the palfrey toward the King's Road north. Smoke from the city drifted high in the wind, carrying the faint clangor of alarm bells. Yet beyond it, somewhere over snow-rimmed hills, dawn waited, keen and cold and merciless. She steered into the darkness, letting it wrap her like a cloak, and rode for the heart of winter. Ka. Snow-flecked dawn seeped slowly across the King's Road, as Lyanna guided the lathered palfrey east of the main track, keeping to the broken ground where boot prints blurred among deer tread and fallen pine. Behind her, King's Landing dwindled to a smear of smoke in the pale light, bells fading to a memory in her ears. At the ridge she turned, studied the distant haze. No bright tongues of wildfire crowned the towers, yet no stillness either. Somewhere within that maze Cersei Lannister either fought the poison or lay already a corpse. Both outcomes birthed turmoil. Lyanna could not linger to learn which. War would come racing after her, and she must widen the lead. She pressed northward until full day limned the world in brittle silver. Frost sheathed every branch. When the wind shook them, a hush of tiny bells rang and died. By midday she reached a ruined way station where shattered stones ringed a dry well. She watered her mount from a pond filmed with ice, saw her own reflection tremble at the touch of the drinking muzzle. Shadows bruised the sockets beneath her eyes, yet a hard bright purpose still blazed behind the weariness. The mission had fissured, but not failed. If the lioness survived, she was weakened. If she died, the pack of pretenders would tear at each other. Either path favored Winterfell. She loosened the saddle cinch, fed the palfrey an oat mash laced with sweetgrass, then crouched beside an uprooted oak to study the maps stolen from the smuggler's cellar. The older culvert plans ended south of the Honeywine, but one corner showed a narrow hunter's path forked toward Hayford. the other into the Crown Land's abandoned mine country. Veins of forgotten ironworks once worked by House Darklin before Maegor the Cruel scoured their line. She traced the Western Fork. Mines meant tunnels. Tunnels meant secret passage north beneath the Royal Patrol arcs. If she reached the Blackwater's upper tributaries by dusk, she could cross on Starlight and slip into the Kingswood, then cut east to the Stormlands or west to the River Road. But the maps also bore inked glyphs in a hand she recognized: Brynden Tully's scouts. 2 circles marked supply caches, one near the ruins of Bronzegate, another on the banks of the Tumblestone beyond the gold mine road. Blackfish prepared for rising, ready to arm deserters with crossbows and grain. The circles formed a crooked ladder leading to River Run. Lyanna rolled the map, tied it with rawhide. River Run beckoned like a hearthfire in a blizzard. Blackfish would throw open gates when she gave the word. Yet the King's Road before Harrenhal crawled with sellsword companies swarmed to Cersei's coin, raiding taxes, seizing hostages against the Iron Bank's debts. She needed stealth, not banners. She needed allies who could flow unseen through Cattail and Catlegard. Read men.ki. The decision settled like falling snow, gentle but irrevocable. She would veer northeast to the Neck, cross the causeway, and vanish into the Crannogs where Howland Reed's green men knew every breath of the swamp. With their boats she could slip down the Green Fork under Will-o'-the-Wisp nights, rallying northern hearts before southern eyes even suspected the winter storm. And if word had already reached White Harbor that Ned's lost sister breathed and fought again, Manderley's fleets might rise quicker than gulls on Chum. She mounted, spurred into a steady trot. Hours passed, hooves crunching hoarfrost, breath fogging. Mid-afternoon, she glimpsed banners on the distant King's Road, a column of 50, maybe 60 riders, crimson cloaks streaming, Lannister outriders fanning to hunt. She cursed softly, reined south into scrub. The palfrey scrambled through gorse and bracken until trees swallowed sight of the road. Lyanna dismounted, tied a strip of cloth around the horse's muzzle to still its wicker, then crouched beneath a tangle of holly. Voices drifted closer, men cursing the cold, joking about the Queen's collapse. Swear she went purple. Maesters stuffing pipes in her throat. The speaker laughed. Someone else spat. If she croaks, a third said, gold will flow for heads. They say the taster fled. Aaron Stone. Lyanna felt the holly spikes bite her palms. So word already painted a target on her pseudonym. She held breath while the column clopped past. One rider peeled off, guided by a lean hound sniffing ground. The dog's hackles rose. It tugged the rein toward the holly. Lyanna slid her dagger into her grip, blade reversed. When the dog thrust its snout through leaves, she hissed a single northern wolf call. The trained predator froze, ears flattening to memory older than training. Ancestral fear. She flicked a pebble into underbrush. The hound barked, veered off the scent. The rider yanked, cursing, and soon both trotted back to the patrol. Slowly, hoofbeats faded. Lyanna breathed again. She waited another minute, then led the horse deeper until the sun's edge bloodied the western horizon. At a tumbled watchtower, nothing but 3 crumbling courses of stone, she found shelter. She risked a tiny fire, hooded from the wind by fallen blocks, and warmed strip-dried venison between 2 stones. She ate without tasting, ears tuned to distance. Only wolf howls stitched the dusk. When stars clawed their way into the vault, she doused the coals, rubbed ash through them, then saddled up. Night travel was perilous, but so was delay. She guided west, using moss and star positions to stay parallel to the King's Road but hidden by thickets. Twice the palfrey stumbled, nearly unseating her. Twice she steadied, whispering calm. Near midnight, the ground dipped toward marshland, reeds rattling. Frog croaks chorused. She slowed, seeking dry islets. Somewhere to the north lay Sow's Horn village, abandoned after the Grey Spring fever, to which a derelict causeway once led. She reached embankment stone half sunk beneath water weeds, guiding the horse along its ragged spine. She felt each hoof tremor echo through the mossy blocks. At the causeway midpoint, moonlight broke free of cloud, washing the marsh silver. And there upon a knoll stood a lone figure, antler helm, sigil lost in shadow. Sentinel or scout? She reined, hand dropping to bow. The figure raised a palm, then knelt, placing a bundle on the ground. Rose, backed away, disappeared. Lyanna dismounted, advanced cautiously. The bundle resolved into a satchel of oiled leather stamped with a leaping trout. Inside, rye bread, smoked eel, a steel signal mirror, and a twist-shut cylinder containing a note in Brynden Tully's terse glyphs. North Bank, Mid-Marsh Cairn. Dawn. She scanned the reeds. No arrows, no rustle. Blackfish's reach impressed her. She tied the satchel behind the saddle and pressed on. 2 leagues later she found the cairn. 4 stones stacked around a torch stub. She waited, watching frost grow white roots across the nearest rock. Near dawn, a punt slid through the cattails. Punt pole swishing. 2 silhouettes. One tall, wire-lean as a heron. The other broad-shouldered, fur-mantled. "Hail the wolf." The tall one croaked low. Reed speech accent thick as peat. "Hail the trout," she answered. Password, Leuven's old code. They beached. The tall man knelt. Cranagman garb. Leather patched with scale pattern. A frog gig over his back. "Reed sends greetings, my lady. The blackfish bids we bear you hidden and swift." The broader shape removed his hood. Brynden Tully's hawk profile broke the gloom. Age scored deeper lines, but the eyes still cut like river glass. "I feared I'd wasted good eel," he said dryly. "You ride louder than you hunt." Stark. Too many hounds on the scent. She clasped arms with him. "Is the queen dead?" "Not yet. But she pisses blood and screams for her brother's head. Half the city thinks Dragonspawn murdered her. The other half thinks you did. Rumor sails quicker than ravens." He jerked his chin at the punt. "Mount. Horses will slow us in the bog. We'll stable yours with a loyal farmer and fetch her later." Lyanna handed reins to the Cranagman, then crouched into the boat. It listed under her weight, water-slapping hull. Brynden took the pole, pushing off. The marsh swallowed them, mist curling around cattail heads like ghost banners. Hours drifted. Dawn painted weak gold through fog. Herons flapped. Brynden guided them into a channel lined by cypress knees, where huts rose on stilts, thatched roofs moss-laden. Cranagfolk eyed them through reed screens. Spears angled warily until they glimpsed the trout sigil on Brynden's brooch. At the largest hut, a ring of lanterns burned despite daylight. Howland Reed emerged, shorter than she remembered, beard flecked white, gray-green eyes deep as fenwater. He smiled, lines spidering. Lyanna of Winterfell. Her breath hitched. Last she'd seen him, Rhaegar's blood had not yet dried on torn grass. She clasped his shoulders, felt his tremor mirror hers. "You kept Ned's promise," she said, "and you keep his memory alive." He drew her inside the hut's smoke-warm hollow. News courses south faster than summer rains. The wolf-maid rides again. They sat upon woven rush mats. Reed women brought stew of fish, root, and marsh herbs. While she ate, Blackfish unfurled a new map. Pins marking patrol arcs, Sellsword companies massing near Harrenhal, Frey garrisons at the Twins. "The neck is ours," Brynden said, tapping Reed country. "River Run stands, those siege towers rot around her walls. Manderley builds warships behind high docks. But we need a spark. The North has slept since Torrhen's bronze crown knelt. The Southern lords believe the direwolf broken. Mendem Sawal." Lyanna wiped broth from her mouth. "Then we rouse the wolf. I will ride home." Reed shook his head. 10,000 foes between here and the Barrows. So fall upon their blind flank. She pointed to Greywater's dotted current. "We take boats down the Green Fork under mist. Land near Fairmarket, cross west through the Wolfswood remains, slip into the Barrow Hills. By the time the Lannisters learn I've passed, Manderley's banners will already march south with grain and spears." She looked at Brynden. "Will River Run rise to join?" The old knight's mouth twisted. "At my word she will. But Freys straddle every road. We'll need more than swords. We'll need the legend of Lyanna resurrected." "You shall have both," Howland Reed said. "Green men speak with trees, We'll send rustle tongues north tonight. Every dancing leaf will whisper that the wolf maid rides for home. Ben shiny hero. Plans spun like loom shuttles through the day. Decoy trails, signal torches, supply caches along the fort. By dusk, Reed's boatwrights had lashed together 2 long river skiffs, shallow draft, painted with mud to mirror the water. Lyanna, Blackfish, and 4 Crannog scouts embarked at moonrise. Fog hugged the channel, current tugged them north. Travel by river unspooled time into a gray ribbon. Days bled together. Reed breath at dawn, river hiss beneath hull, occasional splash of otter. Night, they camped on islets choked with dogwood, nets strung to snare eels. Blackfish taught her the silent oar dip of rivermen scouts. Reed folk taught her to read the ripples where slider turtles spooked, sign of hidden sandbars. 3 nights in, they glided past Fairmarket's ruined wharves. Fires flickered farther upriver. Lannister patrol camp. The skiffs nestled into cattails until patrol torches meandered south again. At dawn they hauled boats ashore near an abandoned ferry dock, disguised them under brush, then trekked west into forest. The Wolfswood southern fingers once stretched to these hills, but war had scarred her flanks. Only scattered groves survived. Still, pine scent filled Lyanna with ache of memory. Benjen's laughter during spring hunts, the thunder of hooves across fresh snow. She pushed pace, determination lending strength. Brynden grumbled yet kept stride. Cranagman moved silent as vapor. On the 4th day, they crested a ridge overlorded by barrow mounds, turf-covered tombs older than steel. A murder of crows erupted from one, spiraling black into sky. Lyanna knelt, pressed palm to ancient stone. Ancestors, she murmured. Heirs return. That night, they camped beside a standing stone ring veiled in stardust. Brynden banked a tiny fire. Lyanna sat apart, sharpening daggers. The world felt poised on knife edge. Behind her, a queen's wrath. Before her, a kingdom's slumber. Wind sighed through grass like distant voices. At second watch, a horn keened faintly eastward, single low note. Brynden tensed, fist on hilt. A shape broke horizon. Rider atop shaggy Garon banner streaming. White direwolf on gray field. Lyanna's heart thudded. She strode forward as the rider dismounted. Woman clad in fur over mail, hair pale as hoarfrost. Lady Alice Karstark, the rider announced. Voice firm. I come by command of Lord Wyman to seek the wolf maid. She unslung a satchel, produced a parchment sealed in blue wax. Lyanna slit the seal. Inside, Wyman's round hand proclaimed, To Lyanna Stark, true daughter of Winterfell. The North remembers. Word reaches White Harbor of your return, and the lion's poison. Ships gather. Grain stores swell. We march when you call. Bring home the fury of our fathers. Signed by Davos Seaworth. Hand to Lord Wyman. Tears stung Lyanna's eyes, dried by wind before they fell. She clasped Ailey's forearm. Tell Wyman and Davos. 4 days hence meet me at the barrow of the Sisters 3. Karstark nodded, remounted, vanished like ghosts through grass. 4 days. Their pace redoubled. They skirted Flint's Crag villages where torches burned bright welcome once they saw the trout and stark wolf side by side. Old men bent knee. Children ran beside the party until breathless. Each dawn new riders joined. Glovers from Deepwood. Mormont archers sinewy and hard, bound to Maeg's will. Ravens spiraled overhead. Rumor flew faster still. On the appointed dawn they reached the sisters' barrow. 3 great humpbacked graves ringed by weathered gargoyle stones. Hundreds already gathered. Ranks of Manderley men in sea green. Karstarks like pale storms. Men of Bear Island bearing axes half their size. Spears fashioned from boar tusk and driftwood. Fires dotted the valley. Smell of leek stew mingling with pine. As Lyanna rode through the host, a hush fell, then murmurs, then a roar. Wolf howls rising from throats of men and women alike. They thumped spear to shield, chanting, Lyanna! Lyanna! She dismounted before the central barrow, climbed its grassy flank. Wind whipped her cloak. Sky overhead churned slate and pewter. She drew no sword, raised no banner. Only stood, hair snapping, eyes alight with the north's reflected fire. My father's bones lie beneath Winterfell. She called, voice carrying clear and cold. But his honor walks these hills in every one of you who remembers. Ned Stark died because Southron lions feared truth. Brendan burned because a mad king feared justice. I lived because the North needed patience. That patience ends tonight. A gale rattled helms. Men leaned forward, hearts hammered. Cersei Lannister bleeds, but her cubs sharpen claws. Lannister gold buys swords on our borders. Frey treachery strangles the rivers. We march not for vengeance alone but for dawn, for children who have never known peace uncloaked by fear. The North marches to claim its own life again. She drew one of Mikken's daggers, held it aloft. Lift steel, all who swear this cause. Blades flashed, a forest of iron under cloud. The roar shook stones. That night, a war council convened within the stone circle. Wyman's girth squatted beside Davos' lean frame. Meg Mormont pounded fist on a weathered table. Galbart Glover laid out scouts' tokens showing Frey Fort's thin-manned since the Long Lake pox. Plans unfurled. Manderley fleets to choke the Sunset Sea lanes, Bear Island archers to harry Deepwood Sellswards, main thrust south along the King's Road in 3 spear points. Carhold, Barrowton, White Harbor, converging at Moat Cailin. Lyanna would ride at their head on a sable stallion gifted by Mage, banners sewn overnight by fisherwives. Direwolf rampant, blue rose between its jaws. Before dawn they parted to drill troops. Lyanna paced outside the council tent when a shadow approached. Davos Seaworth, cloak drawn. "My lady," he said softly. "A blackbird brought news an hour past. The queen yet lives, but barely. She set a bounty of 10,000 dragons for Aaron Stone dead or alive. More troubling, the Iron Bank dispatches envoys to treat with Stannis' daughter, Shireen, claiming Baratheon debts still unpaid. Storm gathers on every side." "Bender," Lyanna exhaled. "Good. Let them chase greed while winter shapes purpose." Davos bowed. "If purpose falters, send for me. I have failed highborns before, but never a wolf who kept her promises." He left on silent feet. She stared at the paling east, where a smear of violet heralded dawn. She thought of Jon, true born of Stark and Targaryen blood, raised perhaps at Castle Black or lost to the wind. Where did his heart beat now? Someday they would stand beneath the weirwood and set the world right in both their names. For now battle. By full light, columns formed. Hooves churned frost, banners cracked. Lyanna donned a breastplate, scavenged from Lannisport loot, blackened against glare, graven with a simple direwolf. She mounted the stallion, Stormcaser, and raised her dagger. Horns bawled. The host rolled south. A steel tide. Travel through the neck proved brutal. Bog-swallowed wagons, biting flies tormented, but reed guides danced across tussocks, laying boards, crafting reed causeways overnight. Lannister outriders attempted ambush near Moat Cailin ruins. Crannog frog spears emerged from mire, skewered them in silence. When the North host reached the causeway keep, Frey banners drooped. The garrison surrendered without arrow fired. Lyanna ordered them bound, marched north for trial by the families of Red Wedding slain. South of the neck, news galloped. Cersei struck down, lion banners flustered. Small folk prayed to any god. Sellswards muttered about unpaid wages. Into this fracture the direwolf slammed. At Widow's Watch Pass, Karstark spears shattered the company of the Black Hand. Survivors fled, casting shields. At the Weeping Water, Manderley longbows felled half a Frey column before swords crossed. Still, enemies massed. Jaime Lannister rode before a host drawn from Casterly Rock and remnants of Tyrell levies, 30,000 strong, anchored behind reinforced towers at Maidenpool. Grain from the Trident stored there. Gold from the Rock banked pay chests in its vaults. To break the lion, Lyanna knew they must cut supply. She dispatched Mage Mormont and Blackfish with 3,000 light horse west to harry wagon lines. She herself angled east with the bulk, hugging the coast where Manderley ships could shadow. On the eve of battle, Lyanna climbed Maidenpool's outer ridge to survey. Fires dotted valley like cracks in the earth. She saw golden banners arrayed neat, shield walls bristling. Across the distance, a solitary rider left the lion lines, white flag raised. She spurred to meet, taking only Reed and 2 guards. It was Jaime. Armor burnished, hair tied back, green eyes weary but resolved. He halted, raised visor. "Lyanna," he greeted, as if name no longer secret. "Sir." She kept voice even. "Cersei clings, but alive," Jaime said. "She swears witchcraft. Yet I've read Maester Franken's report. Nightshade." He paused. "An honorable poison. Merciful. Nendamto." She said nothing. He exhaled, breath fogging. "I won't lie. Her life anchors my house. But I march not solely for her. The realm teeters. If you shatter these lines, winter may drown kings landing in blood before harvest. The realm already bleeds. Choose your bandage, Kingslayer." He flinched at the title, then straightened. "Ride with me into the city. Speak to the Lord's declarant. Claim your innocence. We can forge peace." Lyanna's laugh was low, rueful. "Peace built on my brother's bones. On Rob's butchered bannerman. Bembemsel. I offered peace to Rob once," Jaime said quietly. "He refused. Dead men cannot mend realms. Nor can broken Kingsguard." Silence fell, brittle as hoarfrost. At last, Jaime bowed slightly. "Then tomorrow we carve truth in steel. Know this, Wolfmaid. If we meet in lines, I shall not spare you. I would expect no less." She wheeled Stormcaser, cantered away without looking back. Night winds moaned through camp. She convened captains, explained lion positions, trenches, caltrops. Outnumbered nearly 2 to 1, the North needed cunning. Reed proposed swampfire bombs. Davos suggested feint landing by sea. Brynden championed Midnight River crossing to cut rear lines. Lyanna listened, weighed, then nodded to Reed. "We drown the lions in their own arrogance." Before dawn, fog rolled off the bay thick as eiderdown. Reed's green men stoked peat fires along shoreline, mixing salts that birth cloying mayism. Under cover, Manderley galleys rode silent, offloading Bear Island berserkers behind lion-flanked dot. At first horn, North infantry advanced frontal, shields stomping dirge rhythm. Trumpets answered from Lion Ridge, crossbow bolts darkened sky. Many found shields. Some found flesh. Lyanna rode the center line, banner streaming. She spotted Jaime's bright armor glinting near their right, urging pikemen. She shouted commands. Karstark's angled left, feigning collapse. Lannister foot surged, hungry to exploit. That moment, the hidden berserkers burst from rear, axes swinging like windmill blades. Golden ranks buckled. Panic rippled. Reed skirmishers ignited swampfire pots. Green flame roared across trenches, turning caltrops to molten slag. Horses screamed, tossing riders. Lyanna led the reserve charge, barrel lance and north shield crashing into chaos. She met Jaime and the churn, steel on steel. His blade Tyrfing flashed. Her dagger parried, sparks spitting. Around them battle raged, a maelstrom of cries, splintered wood, flung mud. Their duel felt carved from slower stone. Every heartbeat a year. Jaime pressed, sword ringing off her bracer. She ducked, slashed. He pivoted, gauntlet deflecting. Their eyes locked, mutual respect underpinning lethal intent. At last he slipped on gore-slicked turf. Her dagger kissed throat guard. "Yield," she hissed. But a stray spear glanced her side, pain flared. Jaime lunged, pommel hammering her ribs. She reeled, vision blotched. He could have killed, yet blade held. Instead he stepped back, saluted. "End this, Lyanna. The lion broken serves no cubs." She straightened, blood seeping. Not broken, humbled. Swear fealty to Winterfell, and the realm heals. He shook head faintly. My vows bind me still, though honor phrase. He hefted. Sword, two-handed. One final clash then. For souls already damned. They met again. But fate intervened. Manderley drums boomed. From the north ridge trotted cavalry bearing flayed man sigils, but reversed black instead of red. Ramsay's bastardy banners? No. Closer. The sigil blended with a wolf's head. Leading rode Jon Snow, black cloak over mail, long claw raised. Wilding spears loped behind, ghost pale at their heels. He plunged into lion flank, scattering them. Jaime glanced, disbelief cracking calm. North morale surged. Lyanna's heart threatened to burst. She cried his name. Jon's head turned, gray eyes widened across churn. Recognition hammered them both, but battle swallowed the moment. With lion lines collapsing, rear aflame, shield wall pierced. Jaime signaled retreat horn. Gold banners fell back toward Maidenpool Gate. Jon's riders harried, but Lyanna called them off, caution ruling. Taking city by blood rush risked plague of siege. Better starve them, parley on wolf terms. Field quieted by dusk. Crows already feasted. Lyanna limped among wounded, binding gashes. When she reached command tent, Jon stood within. Armored dirtcate, expression raw.eye. Sister. His voice cracked. She touched his cheek. Felt stubble. Heat of living blood. Brother. They embraced, bruises forgotten. Later, before fire, they shared tales. His resurrection by Red Woman. His abdication to search for lost kin. His rescue of wildlings from anarchy. She recounted Tower of Joy escape. Hidden years, vengeance path. Words tumbled until silence sagged heavy with shared grief. Finally Jon said, "The realm splinters. South there are whispers of dragons reborn beyond sea. North the dead rouse beyond the wall. If we plunge daggers into lions while ice demons march, we trade one doom for worse." Lyanna considered stars wheeling. I sought justice for Ned. Tonight, I found it partly in broken Lannister pride. But perhaps true justice lies deeper, in keeping his grandchildren alive. She clasped Jon's forearm. Tomorrow we send envoys. Jaime may yet choose land over grave. Then we ride north to rally every heart against the long night. Jon met her gaze, wolf to wolf, and nodded. Together. Morning light revealed Maidenpool gates open under white flag. Jaime awaited. Sword stuck point down, hands resting on pommel. He knelt as Lyanna and Jon approached. "The rock stands, but not against winter's wrath," he said. "I will urge my house to bend knee." He looked upward. "Spare the small folk." Lyanna sheathed dagger. "Feed them, clothe them, and the north will guard them when snows fall." In the days that followed, ravens flew. From King's Landing, from Dragonstone, where rumors of Daenerys Targaryen's sails crowded horizon. From Old Town, where maesters measured unnatural cold on glass candles. Cersei survived, but her rule wavered. The Iron Throne now a chair of debts and ghosts. Lyanna summoned council. Jon, Jaime, Davos, Blackfish, Manderley, Howland Reed. "We forge new covenant," she declared within the keep hall, draped in wolf banners. "North and Riverlands pledge swords to the living. Lions may join, dragons may join, stags, krakens, any who stand this side of the grave. When blue-eyed shadows march from the wall, they will find us one people, not 7 shards." Jaime laid Oathkeeper upon table. "I pledge steel and word." Davos produced parchment, bearing freshly written accords. Lords signed. Even wildling chieftains marked with claw glyphs. That eve, as dusk bled crimson over sea, Lyanna stood upon battlements. Jon joined, snow scent on his cloak. "South is appeased for now," he said. "But north calls." She nodded, wind tugging hair. "Let's go home." They rode within the week, column lean but swift. Direwolf banners, lion sigils crossed by white beacons of truce, wildling spears. At Greywater, Crannog boats ferried them under weirwood branches heavy with raven nests. At Moat Cailin rubble children waved, singing North songs. Snowflakes fluttered by the time Winterfell's towers rose on horizon. Smoke curling from Great Hall. They entered through gates, flung wide. Small folk lined Bailey, tears streaking faces. Lyanna dismounted, knelt to press palm against frost-filmed courtyard stones. Home's heartbeat thrummed up her arm. Jon placed hand atop hers. Together they crossed to the Godswood where the weirwood's red eyes watched. Beneath its boughs they swore, "While breath remains, we guard the living." The heart tree answered with hush of leaves, snow settling like blessings. News of their oath rippled outward, carried on raven and rumor. In King's Landing Cersei, thin as a reed, screamed at shadows while Qyburn's leeches drained poison still. In Old Town, maesters recorded white ravens gathering early. In the east, dragonfire glinted on the horizon. Lyanna stood on Winterfell's ramparts one night, snow swirling luminous in torchlight. She breathed cold air deep, felt it fuse with her marrow. War for vengeance had guided her south. War for survival would drive her north. Ned's voice seemed to whisper from crypt stones. "Winter is coming," she answered aloud, voice steady as iron. "And so are we." Beyond the wall, dead things stirred. But this time, the heart of winter beat not with fear, but with the fury of a wolf-maid. Her pack reunited, blades honed by loss, eyes set upon dawn. Kay. River mist swirled beneath the pale arch of the Bridge of Skulls, as Lyanna Stark stood, gloved hands braced against rough stone, and watched moonlight flicker across the Tumblestowe's black ribbon. Below, drift ice nudged pilings with soft clacks like dice in a cup. The fortress lamps of River Run blazed to the east, their saffron glow hallowing the battlements where Brynden Tully's sentries paced in muffled cadence. Breath billowed from her lips in frosty ghosts that vanished into the hush. Behind her, the war camp slept. 10,000 canvas bellies rising and falling in dreamless exhaustion, yet she could not close her eyes. Every hour without motion felt stolen from the strength of their cause. Snow shivered across her cloak as footsteps crunched up the parapet. Davos Seaworth materialized. Sea salt beard silvered, carrying 2 tin cups. Mulled wine, he offered quietly. Wyman's own spice. Lyanna accepted, warmth seeping into her fingers. "You should rest, Dawn's counsel will break you." "Sleep is a luxury," Davos replied. "And I never found comfort in soft beds when storms brew." He leaned beside her. Riders returned. Jaime's envoy reached Casterly Rock. Kevan Lannister wavers. 2 of the cubs talk of oath-breaking. If the queen demands gold for sellswords instead of grain for cities. She sipped, letting wine burn through the chill. Gold buys silence, not loyalty. Winter will test every purse. Just so. Davos searched her face. "You've not said how you'll answer the dragons." Lyanna stiffened. Only a week past had confirmation come on black wings. Daenerys Targaryen had landed at Dragonstone with ships, Dothraki horselords, unsullied phalanx, and 3 living dragons. Rumor claimed the beasts circled the isle each dusk, tails searing wave-tops to steam. "I will not raise blade against Rhaegar's daughter," Lyanna said at last. "But I cannot kneel to fire if winter's breath will freeze us all. When the long night presses, dragons must burn for the living or die with them." Davos nodded, expression grave. "A parley, then. Jon will sail to Dragonstone. Ghost of another pact. He carries Ned's honor. She might hear it. Ben? And you? Hold the rivers, shield the north, bind lions and wolves tight." She set the empty cup on the parapet. "If I ride south again, it must be atop a dragon or leading an army unbroken." And no. 3 days later, Jon departed under gray banners flapping. Caravel Dawnrunner cutting east with Davos commanding. Ghosts stood crimson on the quay long after the ship shrank to a white finger against the sunrise. Lyanna watched until sail and sea merged, then turned inland to war. River Run's outer ward filled with the smells of tallow and beaten mail. Blackfish oversaw drilling. Pike blocks pivoting, crossbow creaks snapping like frost-splintered wood. Mage Mormont barked orders from atop a rail, cubs echoing dainty-wee. Howland Reed's marshmen demonstrated spear-tossing that curved over shields and dropped like striking herons. Lyanna walked the lines, correcting stances, naming each soldier a northern word of blessing. She felt their hearts answer in short, fierce nods. Evening brought dispatches. A southern gale had upended shipping lanes. 3 of Euron Greyjoy's Reaver longships vanished beneath storm swells. Cersei's courier Raven stretched thin. She demanded more wings from Old Town, but the Citadel sent grain requisitions instead. The realm sagged between nightmare teeth, and winter had not yet truly sunk its fangs. And now, when the Frost Wolf's first full howl split the sky, deep January by the old reckoning, Lyanna marched north again. Word had come by Dire Wolf banner. The Night's Watch lanterns burned day-long upon the wall. Wildling scouts fled south with talk of silent white plains, where tracks vanished moments after falling. Joan's pleas from Dragonstone warned likewise. Snow in the rainwood, a frost tide creeping where gulls once nested. The world tilted toward midnight. She left Brynden to hold the trident, sailed up the White Knife on Manderley Cog Cloud Dancer, disembarked at White Harbor amid driving sleet. Lord Wyman, thinned by privation, yet bright-cheeked with purpose, greeted her under hooded torches. "We have stored enough barley for 2 winters," he declared. "Fish barrels line every crypt. If half the realm starves, we will feed them." "So long as the seas do not freeze, prepare convoys," he ordered. "If the wall fails, we must move faster than fear." From White Harbor she took the King's Road on Sleipnir, Stormchaser lamed by an infected hoof, and galloped ahead of her column toward Winterfell. Frozen rime-coated roadstones, wind-wove banshee shrieks through pine needles. Her guard followed silent, eyes narrowed against driven shards. Yet something older than dread guided them. The promise of sanctuary in the gray towers ahead. Winterfell's walls loomed at dusk. Turrets cresting over snow seas, smoke spiraling scarlet from forges. Gates opened. She rode beneath the portcullis to find Sansa Stark waiting. Sister turned ruler, tall, fermentled, hair a living banner of Tully red. Tears met winter's bite on their cheeks as they embraced beside the steaming breath of their horses. Raven said, "Dead things stir beyond the gift," Sansa whispered. "I've armed washermaids with daggers. They may yet need them." Lyanna stepped back, studying the flourishing ramparts. Fresh crenellations, tar-sealed beams. "You have kept our home hard as iron. And warm." Sansa smiled thinly. "Hot springs never fail, thank the gods." Inside the hall they convened. Lady Sansa, Lyanna, 10 Towers Asha Greyjoy holding guest privilege under truce. Lord Manderley, Galbart Glover, and Mira Reed bearing word from her father's marsh. Maester's unrolled maps scratched with inky wakes marking undead sightings. Shores of Long Lake? Shores of Le Shadow Tower. Ruined villages where torches sputtered out and never relit. "The watch claims 15 whites slain, maybe more," Mira reported. "But for every one that falls, 2 rise. And the bodies they burn stand up again hours later, ice walking as though flame were gust of wind." Lyanna traced a finger southward to last hearth. "Karstark, hold fast. If the dead pass the Umber's ruins, they fracture the King's Road." Her eyes met Asha's. "We need the seas." Greyjoy nodded, ponytail swishing. "My uncle endures, but storms clipped his claws. I can rally May Nile captains under the Wolf banner. If you promise salvage rights on any dead ships, take what rots so long as the living sail." Lyanna turned to Manderley. "Wyman, war galleys north to Harry shorelines, ferry refugees south behind the White Knife. Convert merchantmen to troop barges." "It will be done," the Lord wheezed, knuckles white upon his cane. The War Council stretched deep into night, torches guttering. Strategy carved paths across parchment. Choke points at the King's Road Gorge, trenches along the Barrowlands, fallback lines behind the Fever River. Yet for every plan, Lyanna sensed the same unspoken dread. Could mortal steel answer death unending? She slipped away before dawn to the crypts. Ghost lamplight shimmered along vaulted stone where kings of winter slumbered in their cold seats. Eddard's statue watched with silent counsel. She knelt, pressing brow to marble knee. "Father, I have carried your ghost from desert to sea and back," she murmured. "Guide my hand once more." Wind from unseen fissures stirred her hair. Somewhere water dripped. She waited, half expecting voice in the dark, but only heartbeats answered. She rose, resolve kindled. Then, late winter's cruelest blow came fast. At Deep Lake Outpost, a blizzard howled for 5 days, leached torch fires, left harrowed watch brothers stiff in ice with blades still raised. A single raven reached Winterfell. They walk. Hours later, none answered hail. Lyanna summoned every rider, bannerman, hearth knight in the castle. Courtyard thrummed with readiness. She mounted Sleipnir. Stormchaser recovered yet still stiff, and addressed them over swirling snow. Whatever walks south is no mere tale, no children's fright. It killed giants at Hardhome, drowned men in their nightmares. But we carry fire in our blood, the fire of past and promise. Today we ride to defend that promise. We hold the gorge or die as its stones. Horns blared. Gates thundered open. Columns snaked north. Karstark cavalry, Bear Island axemaids, flint spears gleaming like midnight stars. Shipwrights out of Sisterton wearing boil leather helms shaped as gull heads. Above them all the direwolf banner streamed. Blue rose clenched in white fangs. They reached Deep Lake's perimeter by dusk, found the palisade broken inward. Snow churned to pink slurry. No bodies, only armor pieces, snapped swords, drag marks vanishing into drifts. Sansa's breath fogged inside her visor. "Gather fuel," she ordered. "Burn what remains." But there was nothing to burn. Scouts returned before dawn, faces bleached with terror. "They come," stammered a free folk runner. "Ice spiders big as hounds, dead hunters strung like puppets. Eyes, blue stars." Lyanna swallowed. "Signal Manderley, withdraw refugees south of the Weeping Water. Sansa, hold Winterfell at all costs. I ride with the vanguard." Her sister gripped her arm. "Do not chase the storm alone. I am not alone." Joan's voice cut the frosty air. Dawnrunner had docked at White Harbor hours earlier. He rode in at the head of a column of unsullied spearmen in winter furs, Dothraki archers cloaked in seal leather, and Daenerys Targaryen herself astride a white mare named Snowflower. Behind them trudged 3 dragons, Drogon, Viserion, Rhaegal, wings half-mantled under sleet, eyes glowing coals through flurry haze. Heat rippled as Drogon exhaled, snow hissing to vapor. Lyanna met Daenerys beneath a spur of shattered palisade. The Dragon Queen's silver braid whipped. Frost clung to her lashes. "You summoned fire," she said simply. "And you answered." Lyanna extended her forearm. Daenerys clasped it. Bond forged over the gulf of 2 decades of war. There was no time for grand councils. The enemy announced itself in crackling silence. Snowfield westward darkened. As dawn kindled faint pearl, specks resolved. Hundreds, thousands. An army of the dead marching rankless, yet in dread order. White fog preceded them, curling along ground like living thing. Winds died as though world held breath for their pass. At their center rode pale riders horned with ice, blades shimmering turquoise. Others, white walkers, leggings to swallow kingdoms. Jon and Lyanna took forward ridge, windless cold, gnawing at eyelids. "When the dragons strike, we charge," he said. She nodded, though unease knotted her. Dragonfire felled whites, but legends whispered that walker blades sang colder than frost. Might shatter dragon scale given chance. But there was no alternative. Stand or see the world smothered. Drums of Bear Island boomed. Horns of Manderley answered. Across the ridge valley, unsullied locked shields. Ranks glittering with ice frost. Dothraki notched fire narrows dipped in pitch. Wolves of the north lifted ululating howls. echoes that bounced against the hearts of foe and friend alike. Daenerys mounted Drogon, cheeks streaked with bright tears that froze to silver trails. She guided the beast skyward. Rhaegal and Viserion thundered after, wings thrashing snow into spirals. They rose, silhouettes blotting dawn's sun. A breathless moment, then Drogon stooped like a falling mountain. Flame gushed, deep red at core, white at edges, bathing the first white ranks. Skeletons exploded to ash. Frozen torsos burst like fruits in summer heat. Rhaegal's green inferno carved a second path. Viserion's pale gold seared the flank. Yet the dead did not panic. They marched through their own incinerated front, stepping over black ash. Behind, the White Walkers raised slender hands. A curtain of blue frost rose, meeting flame in violent hiss. Steam plumed, lighting the battlefield in rainbow crystal arc spikes. Jon roared. The northern lines surged. Karstark cavalry thundered downhill. Lances crackling with dragonglass tips gifted from Dragonstone's mines. In the center, Lyanna led foot, the direwolf banner at her back, shield rimmed with obsidian shards. They slammed into the icy ranks, bones splintered, undead arms grasped with nightmare strength. Dragonglass cut them, and where the lightless shards pierced, whites dropped silent. But those slain by steel alone crawled anew, limbs twitching. In Lyanna's peripheral vision, Jon met a walker. A tall, slender creature with face sharp as an owl's skull. Long claws Valyrian steel sparked blue when it clashed with the ice blade. Lyanna fought to reach him, but a knot of whites piled upon her. She swung dagger in tight arcs, severing tendons. Whites toppled. East her helm. Shock numbed ear. The battle degenerated into swirling pockets of chaos. Dothraki screamers lit Arak edges in blue wakelight. Dragonglass fuses bound by reed alchemists, striking like constellations across the field. Unsullied squares advanced, pushing stakes through gaps in dead armor. Dragons swept again, but frost curtains stiffened, muting flame. Ice cracked underfoot, fountains of freezing mist geysered, chilling men to marrow. Then from the rear came a sound like glaciers shearing. Mammoths dead and reanimated, tusks rimed and eyes cobalt. They charged through gaps, trampling living and dead alike. Bear Islanders leapt onto backs, drove axes into skull plates, but beasts raged on, bodies impervious. Drogon swooped, breath scorching one mammoth's hide. Fiery flesh peeled, yet beast walked still. Daenerys gasped, wheeling away as spears of ice hurtled past her head, thrown by walkers. Lyanna's arms shook. Shield edges dented, breath crystals thick in scarf. She sensed fatigue, rippling along the line like chain links straining. If they broke, Winterfell stood vulnerable. Behind that, the southern heartlands. In desperation she whistled. Sharp foxglove trill. From the rear galloped a wedge of knights. Jaime Lannister leading, Oathkeeper gleaming black under hoarfrost. His lion helm now bore direwolf sigil welded across brow, token of truce. He crashed into mammoth flank, arrows from Carhold archers peppering eyes. At last the monster buckled, burying undead beneath. Jon's duel ended abrupt. Longclaw bit Walker's blade, spark showering. With second swing he sheared hand from wrist. The ice thing shrieked, body fissuring to shards. At once dozens of whites surrounding him collapsed inert, snow sculptures unmoving. Cheers rippled, but faltered. 7 more walkers stalked forward, each commandant to legion behind. Lyanna spat blood. We need the heart. She growled. Cut their king and the core crumbles. Somewhere smothered by the throng, stood that king. The Night's King, or whatever ancient lord commanded. Rumor placed a mark upon his brow, a shard of dragonglass driven by children of the forest. Only dragonsteel might pierce it. She sheathed dagger, slung shield on back, seized a fallen pike. Around her maideners rallied, Sansa's personal guard, forming protective ring. They advanced, carving path. The ground here undulated, slick with melt and refreeze. Visibility shrank amid steam and spinning snow. Then a gap opened. Across it stood the figure she sought. Tall, lean, armored in midnight glass shards. Eyes glowed lit furnace blue. In one hand he clutched an ice spear, the point shimmering stormlight. In the other, nothing, empty as abyss. Around him dead stiffened, awaiting signal. Lyanna felt fear, raw as her first breath beneath Rhaegar's discarded cloak. Yet, fury overrode. She hefted the pike, dragonglass head glinting, and charged. The Night King watched, head tilting fraction. He flung his spear. It whistled past. Her dive saved life by inches. Impact shattered a bare island banner behind. She rolled, came up short range, thrust. The king's reflex surpassed mortal. He parried with bone forearm, shards ringing against blackening glass. Steel would crack. She let the pike go, drew Valyrian dagger gifted by Daenerys only nights before, repurposed from catspaw blade. She slashed low. He countered with frost gauntlet, snatching her wrist. Cold seared flesh, burning inverse heat. She screamed. With free hand she punched his visor, iron knuckles blossoming fracture web across ice mask. Cracks spidered. He hissed. Above, Rhaegal banked, Jon leaning from harness. He shouted, but wind warp stole words. Drogon farther, fought trio of ice bat demons. Time slowed. Lyanna saw Jon fling something. Glinting comet, downward. Valyrian steel dagger? No. Dragonglass spear, fletched in red feathers. Trajectory, perfect. She tore free of grip at last instant. The spear ripped the air where her chest had been, plunging into Night King's throat. Soundless shatter. Ice exploding in spray. The king collapsed. Shards cascading like broken chandelier. For a heartbeat, the world hushed. Then across the field whites crumpled, brittle, their blue eyes darkening. Walkers faltering. Bodies cracking to powder. A wave of death reversed roared outward, leaving silence. Snow fell again, soft now. No wind. Soot from dragonfire drifted like black petals mixing with white. Survivors looked about, dazed, weapons slack. Somewhere a man laughed, edge of hysteria. And others followed, sobbing or cheering, until voices merged into a single rise of living sound that overwhelmed the stillness. Lyanna knelt, half-frozen fingers unwrapping cloth burned round wrist. Pain fierce, but laced with triumph. Jon landed Rhaegal near, boots crunching. He pulled her upright, arms steady. Around them Daenerys descended, Drogon's wings stirring snow devils. Jaime limped close. Mage Mormont raised axe in salute. Sansa arrived on grey mare, face streaked tear and grime. North and south, fire and blood, wolf and lion, assembled under soft snowfall over battlefield of shattered ice. Lyanna faced them, voice ragged yet clear. The long night is broken. A cheer thundered, scattering ravens on nearby pines. And hall. Spring would not come swiftly. Frost lingered months. Rivers unclenched inch by inch. Yet without the night, kings will the dead lay quiet, and each sunrise felt brighter. Columns of weary soldiers returned to Winterfell to mend walls. Bury honored friends beneath barrow earth warmed by hot springs. Refugees streamed inland. White Harbor's kitchens fed thousands. Daenerys lodged her dragons in a newly dug basalt pit outside Moat Cailin, where geysers melted snow for their baths. She spoke often with Lyanna, planning governance beyond war. One dusk they walked beneath budding weirwood leaves, red sap oozing like spring blood. The realm kneels to neither lion nor dragon now, Daenerys observed. You could seize the throne. All hearts love the wolf maid. Lyanna smiled wearily. Thrones forged chains for greater wars. I would sooner rebuild wells and roof beams. She paused, eyes on horizon. Will you sail home to Valyria's shadow? Perhaps, the Dragon Queen murmured. Or perhaps I stay where songs are still unwritten. She glanced at Jon, in conversation with Davos beneath glowing lantern. Fire found ice. Together we forged dawn. Let history decide the crowns. In months that followed, assemblies met in River Run's wide fields. Lords from every quadrant, Tully Trout, Tyrell Roses bruised but resilient, Greyjoy Krakens under Asha's black banner, even Trader Freys humbled by famine, gathered. They forged the Pact of the Dawn, a realm of 7 courts, each choosing voice by moot, bound not by fealty to one throne, but by covenant to defend the living against any returning dark. Overseer seats rotated, starting with Lady Sansa of Winterfell. Gold flowed from Casterly mines to rebuild Dorne's irrigation. Reach grain shipments fed shattered crownlands. Ironborn ferried stone for northern keeps. Lyanna refused any chair, took title Shield of Winter. She and Howland Reed oversaw carving of dragonglass monuments marking mass graves. Texts etched in runes and floral script. Remember the night, that the day may endure. Children played among them, their laughter echoing. Now, years spun. Dragons nested in the smoking sea. Daenerys birthed an alliance of traitor cities that bridged Essos and Westeros. Jaime donned Ranger green, rebuilt the Brotherhood without banners into Order of the Hand and Scale, writing roads from Old Town to Gulltown. Wildlings settled in the Gift, teaching sewing to children who once knew only snow hunts. And far in the north, at a rebuilt Castle Black, new weirwoods sprouted, saplings transplanted with care. Jon watched them grow, ghost white against aurora nights. Lyanna rode often, along the Trident where reeds whispered her brother's name, to the summer isles where she once hid, now planting schools in villages she'd once passed in silence. Wherever she traveled, blue winter roses followed, cultivating memory, resilience. She carried no crown, no jewel, only a scar across her jaw and a dagger at her hip. Cold steel reminding peace of its cost. On the 20th anniversary of the Dawn Pact, horns rang beneath Winterfell's walls as twilight painted the sky wolf gray. Flocks of banners arrived, Targaryen ruby and obsidian, Lannister gold entwined with direwolf white, Tyrell green blossoming once more, ships pennants from the stepstones and across the summer sea. Bonfires dotted the courtyard. Song rose, mingled tongues praising harvests free from dread. Lyanna stood beside the heart tree, hair threaded with silver now, eyes still winter steel. Jon approached, cloak fur-lined, crown of pale jasper in hand. "They bid me place this upon your brow," he teased softly. She chuckled. The stump would protest another statue. She took the circlet, laid it among the roots. "Let the old gods wear it." He gazed up at stars emerging. "Do you regret?" "Nothing." Her breath misted. Perhaps that father never saw this sky. Jon laid hand on hers. "He sees." They rejoined the revel. Children danced. Dragons roared distant greeting. Above them the night shyly revealed its jewels, but no blue stars burned among them. Only the warm flicker of torches and the aurora ribbons that sometimes followed dragon flight. In that softer dark, Lyanna Stark closed her eyes and remembered. Benjen's laughter, Brandon's proud chide, Ned's quiet strength. She felt them in the ground beneath, in the heat of every forge, and the hush of every spring thaw. Winter had come and gone. The pack had endured. And somewhere beyond tomorrow's dawn, new stories waited. Tales not of tears beside frozen rivers, but of children naming puppies after long-dead heroes, of saplings growing tall beside black stone markers, of frost giving way, season by season, to fields bright with blue roses